What is up, Internet Basketball Junkies? Welcome back to our advanced coaching course. Tonight, we're diving into one of the most stressful and most decisive parts of the game, late game situations. End of quarters, end of games, one possession, one timeout, one decision that can swing everything. I'm joined by Coach Kramer, and we're centering tonight around his guide, which is called A Six-Pack of Late Game Sets. This is a collection of go-to actions you can trust when the clock is low and the margin is thin. We'll also touch briefly on some overlapping concepts from my special teams guide, talking about timeouts and organization and situational clarity. We aren't going to be able to get into everything in the guide, but I've asked Coach Kramer to pick out a few of his favorites that we'll spend some time with those concepts. Coach, let's start by kind of setting the stage here. Thanks for joining us for this conversation.
Yeah, this is a great one, Coach Hack. And, we talk about the advanced coaching piece here. So many other things are important, before you get to stuff like the late game situations when you're building a program, especially when you're rebuilding one. But like once your team has arrived and you're in a situation where you feel like in a season you've got a chance to be a championship team of some kind, whether that be a conference championship or a tournament championship where you're cutting a net down, even a state championship, these really become vital. And being good at every situation imaginable at the end of a game, is oftentimes the difference between winning and losing once you've reached that competitive level. And so I think it's like really important to be aware of all those situations before you go into a season, and really be good at some things that you don't show except for in those situations on the offensive side, and some tricks that you may have even on the defensive side that can steal your possession here or win you a game down the stretch. That preparation, I think, is just vital. Again, if you're a budding program that isn't winning many games and you're not competitive at the varsity level yet, this is probably not where you would start. But by goodness, if you get to this level, we always talk about how, coaches help teams win games, on game night. So much of it happens in practice, right? With all the stuff that we do there. But like right here, this is a chance to make a major impact on game nights in big games and situations that result in great memories. So I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, a couple lead-in questions before we get into looking at some resources here. But what do you think, like, when a game is tight and you're in a position where you have to pull one of these plays out, what is the first thing that you're thinking about? Is it matchups within the game? Is it the time and score? Is it the spacing? Is it the practice reps that you've put in? I think, from my headspace, I would be thinking about, what is things that we have practiced as a team that I could go to prior to trying to draw something up in a huddle that we've never worked on. What are you thinking about?
I mean, that's a gregreat point. I had a chance to sit, and talk with the great Mike Dunleavy, who coached in the NBA for 20 years, was a GM for 10, and played for 10 years. And one of the questions I asked him was, you hear it all the time, announcers saying that so-and-so drew this play up out of the huddle. I just asked him, and I figured what the answer was going to be because I know what it is at the high school level. But he said, Matt, there's not a coach alive that's going to draw up a play dry and that the players have never seen before on some level and put them in a position to try to execute it at the end of a close game. And these are professional players, right? So when you're talking about the high school level, if you haven't practiced it in a game, then you probably shouldn't put your eggs in that basket. If you haven't practiced it in practice over and over and over to really fine tuning the execution, you probably shouldn't make it be the thing that you're running at the most crucial point in a game, right? I mean, when we talk about this six-pack, I've got a couple plays from the side that I really like, and I only run them in situations where the game's on the line. And that means if we don't run them for 17 or 18 games, then we don't run them for 17 or 18 games. Now at that point, again, to kind of further with that conversation, with Mike, who became a friend of mine through his recruitment of one of my players when he was at the University of Tulane. One thing which you can do on the whiteboard is you can make a subtle adjustment to something that they've been running, even if maybe you haven't run it before, especially if you maybe put it on film the game before. So, to just draw something up that players have never seen before, at a crucial point in the game, and have them go out there and try to execute it. You have there's almost a 0% chance that you'll be able to do it. And to that point, think about if you do that in practice against your JV team, right? And just try it sometime and see if the first time the kids walk out of the huddle that you drew that play up, if they don't go out there and screw that play up somehow. So, again, to me, you asked a series of questions there. For me, it's, I want certain players to get the last shot. Depending on how short the clock is, it's got to be something pretty fast. And I want to put my 2 or 3 best players in a combination where one of the 3 is going to be put in a position to take the game-winning shot or game-tying shot. So it's more about players with me and preparation than it is any certain matchup that the other team might be, throwing out there. And I also like to have things that will work against a man or a zone, because if we break the timeout and, we thought they were going to be in a man and they're in a zone, it still has to work, especially if we don't have another timeout to draw something else up. So, kind of a combination of all those 3 things. The reason that there's a 6-pack of those is because these are the ones that I've relied heavily on. Like, again, I always say, from the cornfields of Ohio to the arenas in the shadows of downtown Atlanta, these have worked at every level of high school basketball. They've helped my teams win some really big games, and they provided some really cool memories. So that's kind of why I picked those 6.
Yeah, you stole my second question here, which is going to be about, how do you prepare for the unexpected in a timeout when you're trying to draw something up, in particular, like the defense changing from man to zone or something like that. So you'd mentioned a solution of drawing something up that works against both man and zone defense. You could just wait and see, and then when the defense shows what they are, you could call timeout if you've got the wrong call. Or you could try to call 2 different plays in the huddle, something like that. What do you think of when something unexpected happens, or does it really just come down to whether you have timeouts to organize again or not?
Yeah, I think they're great questions, man. I think there's a lot of variables there. I think whether or not we have another timeout is big. I think where the ball is on the floor. I love side out of bounds late in the game. If I'm going to call a timeout and not run right into a play, which honestly I really like to just attack a defense when it's on its heels. But let's say we're going to call a timeout and go for the last shot. I prefer to be on the side because there's a number of different things that we can do on the side. There's 2 plays that I really like that are in this pack that'll work, I know, against a man or a zone. And I'm very comfortable with either one. So when we break the huddle, let's say one of the ones we're going to look at is Titan. If we're in Titan, it's designed for a man-to-man, but we're going to practice it against a man or a zone, so we can take a look at who we would be screening if the team would perhaps go to a zone. And I just feel really good about our chances to get the right shot off, regardless of what that defense is in. I'm not a big change the play kind of guy. Now, if it's end line out of bounds and we're against the press, we'd come out in our 4-up look with the stack in the middle with the 1 and the 5. And we do have an audible that we think they're in a diamond and they're in a man-to-man that we can get right into it out of that same look. So we're not going to get tricked in that situation if it's a situation where you have to go the length of the floor, whether it's a man or a zone.
Yeah, the last thing before we start getting into resources here is I'm interested in hearing a story from you about a successful late game set that you drew up. The one that comes to mind from my coaching career is we got a nice win at Central Catholic, which can be hard given they pick their own officials over there. But we were in a late game crunch, and I drew up kind of a gate screen play, and we got a shot in the corner, and our kid knocked it down to win. We were down 2, and he hit a 3 to put us up 1, and it was at the buzzer. And I actually misspoke. I handed the clipboard to my assistant, who was very confident in his play, and it did work. And I'm just thankful that I had enough trust in him to hand him the clipboard, because we wouldn't have got out of there with a win if I had not. What's an interesting story of late game situation success that you've had, Coach?
Is there anything better than that? I don't think there's anything better in coaching than watching a ball settle in the net at a buzzer beater, and then especially in a tournament situation where you just won a game that you're going to get to cut a net down. And I've been, blessed a couple different times to do that. One was length of the floor 9.9 seconds. The other team shooting a free throw. We don't have any timeouts. So on a missed free throw, that came down to us being really good at our fast break fire situation where we just spaced the floor as we've done so often and ended up with a putback shot at the buzzer to win it. Drawing things up, we had a game when I was in Georgia. We were playing against a rival school, Alpharetta, in a Martin Luther King Day Classic on a Monday evening, and it was a really, really cool setting. We were down by 2, and we were end line out of bounds coming out of a timeout. And the second play that we'll look at that I call W, for no other reason that it hopefully leads to a win, right? We drew it up, and we practiced it a number of different times. And what we ended up with was the secondary option was the slip screen that the post who was setting a pin down for my Duke-bound guard, Alex O'Connell, to come off of to hit a game-winning 3. Two guys jumped him coming off the screen, and we hit our post guy, Chris Lewis, who ended up playing at Harvard, slipped into the basket, and he dunked with 2 hands at the buzzer to tie the game. And then in overtime, we were down to sideline out of bounds, and we went to this Titan play that we're going to look at. We ran it to absolute perfection, hit Alex O'Connell coming off the screen, and he hit a 3 falling into our bench, the buzzer, to win the game by a point. So that's kind of the reason that I picked these 2 different sets, because they were a combination to help us win a really big game, in a really cool setting back in the 2015-2016 season that saw our team go to the Final Four. So that was a big win for us.
Boy, a dunk at the buzzer is very dramatic because it's got to come out of the player's hands before that buzzer sounds.
Yeah, so, I was holding my breath. I really, being the guy I am, I really wanted the 3, but like you could see that he was going to get there. It was, it was dunk and then buzzer. So it was no question about it. And I told him in the huddle, I told him, we got exactly the right amount of time to hit either thing. So don't worry about the clock. We've done this over and over and over again in practice against the clock. And when I pointed to the clock and I showed our guys we got 8.5 seconds left, we've practiced it at that length, and they know exactly what they can get out of it. So that's the other reason that practice preparation is huge, right? Guys have to be able to trust that they're able to get it executed in the amount of time they have left. And they knew, because of our practice preparation, they had just enough time to get either of those 2 things. And it worked out really well that night. Obviously it doesn't always work out that well. We wouldn't be here talking to you if we were that great, right? I mean, we'd be someplace on our own island. But when it does work out great, when preparation meets that opportunity and the ball goes in the basket, it's probably the coolest feeling you can have in coaching during a game.
Yeah, we're going to take a good look at a couple of your late game options for set plays, but to kind of broaden the conversation, I wanted to talk a little bit about some other special situations before we dive into your resource. And the first one that I wanted to bring up here is on the defensive side of the ball. And this is a sideline out of bounds trap setup. And I've used this through my coaching career. The first year that I was a head coach, we won our district. We made it to regionals. We played a team called Beechwood. We ended up losing in a pretty close game against a talented team. But one of the things that they did that I found really interesting was they would trap our sideline out of bounds inbounds pass. So I stole that, and I'd used that the rest of my time coaching. And it was extremely effective, especially when used in smaller doses. So we'll roll this a little bit, and then we can kind of talk about this concept, as the film rules here. But all we're doing is we're going to take our inbounder, and they're going to chase that pass, and we're going to rotate behind it. So the key here is making sure you have a rotation to cover the inbounder, because you can't just let them throw a quick pass back right to the inbounder, or then they're just in kind of a 4-on-3 advantage against you. So anytime we're calling this, we're gonna take the player that's guarding the inbounder, we're gonna chase that pass and try to corral it into like a run and jump type of situation there. So we would vary this where we had 3 calls for sideline defense. One was off, where the player defending the inbounder would sit back in the lap on the block. If like we had a team that was trying to run post action out of sideline out of bounds, they would contribute to guarding that. So we would guard behind in the post, but sit the inbounder's defender in front of that block. Then we would have a call called on, which was basically our bluff to this, which is red. So on meant we were over top of the inbounder, but we weren't going to trap. And then red was the third call, which meant we were going to chase that inbound pass and try to stir something up. So this is great for like a come from behind type of situation, or a way just to get a little bit spicy and add some pressure if you want to mix up the game a little bit. Have you seen very much of this sideline inbound trap?
I have. I don't know that anybody's ever done that against me, Coach. But like I said, every time we talk, I learn something that I really like, and I like to in a out of a timeout or in a key situation in the game, maybe show whatever zone we're in, say 2-3, and trap the first pass or rush the guy coming across half court with two. I've never seen it on the sideline out of bounds against me, but I like it. I like it a lot. I think it's a great way to steal a possession. It's a great way to wreck a team coming out of a timeout that had a play set, right? Yep. And you may even get a pick six on that to win a game if the game's tied or you're down one, right? So it's good stuff.
Yeah, and definitely the element of surprise helps here. So if you do it on every sideline out of bounds, it's going to lose its effectiveness. But if you vary it and only use it in key spots, it's very, very effective. So
you know what else I like about that, Coach? And again, I always like try to coach the whole game here, right? If a team knows that you might do that, it really limits what they're going to try to do to you sideline out of bounds, right? So there's some of that element too that I really like.
Yeah, they're thinking about ball security and ball safety instead of what they're going to do next. So let's flip it here and let's talk about another concept here. And what I wanted to get into next was this idea of a tier system for your sideline out of bounds or baseline out of bounds plays. And basically what this is, Coach, is tier one are going to be slobs or blobs that you practice with your team and you use the vast majority of the time. So like your standard baseline or sideline out of bounds plays, we would consider those tier one. Tier two would be like your specials. So stuff that you're only going to dust off in key spots, but you have practiced it with your team, but you're going to use them sparingly so that their effectiveness is ripe when you choose to call them. And then there would be a tier three, which would be like you and your coaching staff have things in your head that you might go to if the situation is right. Because the thing with special situations is you don't know where you're going to have the ball. You don't know how much time is going to be left. And it's hard to have something that you've practiced with your team for every single situation you might find yourself in. So while I don't desire to run something at a key moment of the game where we've never practiced it before, sometimes you're in a situation where that's actually, you've got to do that. So tier one, stuff you practice and use regularly. Tier two, stuff that you practice but use sparingly. Tier three, stuff you'd have to draw up if you were in dire constraints. Yep. Have you ever seen, blob slob packages kind of packaged this way?
Yeah, I mean, I've never heard it done according to that. As always is the case with your stuff, your level of organization and kind of labeling things to me really is unrivaled. I think you do a great job of that.
Thank you.
But I do agree with you that there will be something that comes up, right? One of the things that does come up sometimes is sideline out of bounds in back court, right?
Yeah.
So that now you're in a tougher spot. So like one of the things I like to do with that is throughout the season just practice our press offense and maybe a counter attack out of our press offense from that situation. So in case late in the game that ever pops up, that we at least have something that we can hang our hat on and feel like I can draw something out of that, some adjustment of some kind, that so it's not completely unfamiliar to players. But yeah, you're right. There's a million late game situations out there, and you really have to try to think of all of them. And then just when you think you've thought of all of them, something else pops up and you're like, man, I wish I had thought of that. So like one of the things here that I think really this adds some value to for other coaches, especially young coaches, is maybe we can level the playing field for some on the experience thing, because really it's experience that teaches you how to manage those situations more than anything else. And sometimes that experience is, wow, I wish I would have thought of this before I was in this spot, right? That happens.
Yeah. And the toughest one is the deep corner sideline inbounds, which is a question that I get in my DMs every couple weeks or so. What do you got for deep corner sideline? And it's something that like hardly ever happens. So you don't want to be stuck in that situation and really not have anything prepared, because it is pretty rare to have specials that can function from backcourt sideline, regular sideline, or near court. Here's the last one that I'll pop up here before we get into your document. And that's kind of thinking about attacking right off the jump ball with the set play as a special situation. So there's two of them that we're looking at on the screen. One of them I see pretty commonly in college basketball, which is we're going to tip it backwards, we're going to advance it up the sideline, and then we're going to screen the jump ball player on the opposing team and look for a lob at the rim. I see that in college basketball quite a bit. And this other one here is, we're going to position so that we can tip it forward, and then we're filling lanes behind that. Have you used any strategies to try to score right off the jump ball?
Yeah, we've used that back pick before, mostly when I was at Milton because I had a 6'10", who could get up a little bit and we could win a tip. I didn't do it much in my time here in Ohio, especially at Fairless, because we were vertically challenged across the board just about every year. So, the jump ball wasn't going to be something that we were great at. We spent a lot more time, with those teams learning how to defend the jump ball, especially in a situation where maybe we get to an overtime and that first jump ball, the last thing we want, is for somebody to get a tip and, an easy layup on us or a wide open three on the first play. So I think it's definitely something you need to prepare for. You're too young to remember this, but like in high school, when I was in high school in 1984-85 season was the last year that the jump ball was actually in high school basketball. If you look that up here in Ohio, find that to be true. And I think that the alternate possession took a lot of the starch out of coaches' creativity on jump balls because you're only going to get, at most, usually one, right? Because everything else is a alternate possession. Maybe if there's an overtime, now there's two. But like I always tell coach, you got to practice that, because what if it is overtime, right? Now all of a sudden that's a pretty important tip. And so I think it warrants, if you've got a guy that can get up and you can win a tip, I think it definitely warrants some preparation time because it can steal you a game.
Yeah, so with that, let's kind of dive into your document here, and we're going to look at Titan, which it looks like to be a box set, but I'm interested to be walked through this set play with you and kind of the options, and I'll let you take it away from here, Coach.
Yeah, I usually name a play after the team that it worked against for the first time, right? So we're playing Triway, the 2006-2007 season. We haven't beaten Triway in 25 years, and we're at the end of regulation, right? This is the year we've rebuilt, we've arrived, and if you've been to Triway, you talk about that Central Catholic gym. Triway they called the Pit, and that gym was it had people swinging from the rafters in that place. They give you a small allotment of tickets, and it kind of looks like a college football game. Your fans are sequestered over in the upper section on the other side, and it's all purple everywhere, and you're down in this pit, and we're down 3, and we got 1.2 seconds left, and we go to this play. What we got here is a box set, and I number the players just so everybody understands. We number the players not according to their positions here necessarily, but it's so you can see the different players, right? So our 4-man here doesn't have to be a 4-man. Our 2-man doesn't have to be a 2-man. What we want to do is we want to make sure our 4-man is a big enough kid and a good enough passer to see over a defense and be able to complete a pass. And we also want him to be able to catch the ball and shoot it if it should happen to come back to him, because it does sometimes, okay? So that's the first thing we want to look at. The guy that we want to take the shot is on the elbow, okay, on the ball side. So in this first image there, I believe it would be the 3-man. Am I seeing that right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So we've got the 3-man here. I'm looking at my own screen because I can just see it a little bit better with my old head eyes here. Our 2-man is a guy that we want to be a threat to catch and shoot. But maybe not somebody that they're going to be overly worried about denying right from the start. And our 1-man down there on the opposite block is going to be a guy that he's going to be a player for us. We want him to occupy somebody when he comes around that first screen. And then our 5-man on that backside elbow is going to be our guy who's most likely to set a good screen and be able to slip to the basket, put the ball in the basket in traffic if the play should happen to progress that far. So that's kind of the look here. Okay. At that point, we got a number of things that go into this play. I think it says there it's good from. I'd run this with 9 seconds left. Honestly, I got another one that I like too from the side when there's a little bit more time. But like this one is really good from 5 seconds, between 5 seconds on down to 1.2, 1.8. You have to know how much time's left. Some of the options are eliminated depending on how much time is left. But even at 1.8 seconds. 1.5, you're going to have a couple different options on this, and that's really what I like about it. So that's your setup.
And you're really detailed in here where you're talking about each position. This position needs to be able to do this. This 4 needs to be a good passer. 3 is your primary option. 1 needs to be a player who's going to draw some attention. So you're really detailed in this resource. But let's talk about how this play develops here.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The first thing that I worry about on a side out, especially if we don't have any timeouts left, is if the guy who's got the inbounder plays with his back to the inbounder and tries to deny the inbounds pass. Okay. So the first thing that I want to do here with 1, all right, is I want him to curl around. It kind of looks like an elevator screen, but those guys stay split. They don't squeeze together like the elevator screen. So 1's going to come up through there like he's coming to the ball, and he's going to curl around it's really just kind of a stationary screen, kind of just natural interference there. And he's going to curl to the corner, okay, to make sure that he wipes out anybody who's sitting up in that area that's going to try to deny the inbounds pass.
So
now,
X4 is sagging off the ball and trying to disrupt you where you want to throw it in. You're hoping that 1 is going to clear to the corner, and it's going to draw the attention for the person that you actually want to catch the ball.
Yeah, if X4 does that, he's going to draw that attention. He's going to have to. It's an absolute certainty. We've never had this play blown up by denial here. Now, if you look at that first screen, that guy coming around there, right, especially if it's really short clock, if he comes around there clean, we practice throwing him that ball, and we practice him, 1-2 into that shot. And that's a shot that, there's 0.8 seconds left or 1.2 left. That's the best you're going to get. Yeah. Then they don't guard him coming around there. We'll go ahead and take that shot, right? I will tell you that we've never taken that shot. We've never thrown the ball to that player in the times that I've run this. But when we run it in practice, we do sometimes. And it's a very makeable shot when you work on that pass and that footwork. Okay. So the object there is to clear out the area that we're trying to enter, right? So one is wiping out the denial, right? Whether X4 is turned or up on the ball or wherever he's at. And 2, we always tell 2, as soon as 1 gets even with 3 above it, okay, 2 is sprinting like on a zipper cut right up there off of 3's inside shoulder, right? And that's really where we're looking to get the ball in, right there to 2. Right now, 2 again is a kid that can catch and shoot. Right, so we don't. If it's late clock and his guy gets hung up on that screen there, we don't have any problem with 2 turning and facing and going ahead and taking that shot. It's not the primary option, but hey, listen, right? People don't understand. Late game plays work really well because you've looked at all the possibilities. And the last thing we want to happen, I always tell my guys, right, is that we end up standing there holding the ball when the buzzer goes off. Right. So the first really good shot we get that the defense allows us to take, we can't be real picky about it. So we put guys in positions we think can make these shots. And again, we never took that shot, but we would take it in practice sometimes just to show guys, right? If we get a great screen and end up wide open, then that's the best shot, then take it. Right. The object is to hit 2 there, right, coming off. And as soon as two clears and 3 sees out of the corner of his eye that 4 is inbounded to 2, he's sprinting off that elbow to elbow screen there. 5 is going to take 1 step toward 3, and on 2's catch, okay, 3 is sprinting underneath 5 to the right wing, okay, and 2's job is to lead 3 behind the 3-point line for that shot over there. That's really the number one option in this play. When I mentioned Alex O'Connell hitting that shot back in 2015-16, that's the shot that we got. We got the pass to 2, we got 3 cutting under 5 screen, we got the pass from 2 to 3 on the right elbow, and we got the 3-point shot to win the game.
Yeah, and what I really like about what I'm seeing here is you stretch the defense side to side, the complete width of the court. So anytime if they're trying to jam up on your people or compress, you've got the defense stretched from a width standpoint, and you've kind of cleared your way to get your entry. You want 2 to get the catch, so you've ran 1 in front of anybody that could contest that pass. So 2 should be pretty clear to catch it, and you're using your 5-man to screen, which typically the players defending a 5-man, they're not the most mobile player to be able to run out on a jump switch. But I would assume you're teaching your players that you've got to screen your own man if it's a switching situation or something of that nature.
Yeah, and again, you're going to get a zone pushed over to that side too, so you can see here it would be a good play against the zone as well. The next piece of this is on that pass from 2 to 3. Five's man, especially if it's a really short clock, is going to run at that shooter. So we teach our 5 not to fight. We set a good screen. We don't want to get called for an illegal screen. Set the screen. When your guy jumps over it, dive to the basket. Because if you're looking at this side against the man-to-man, there's nobody left over here on this side of the floor. If you've got 1.8 seconds, or I think 1.8 is probably not enough. If you got 2.5, you've got a chance to go pass for a layup there to 5 on the dive. If you're only down by 2 points or 1, that's a fantastic option here, right? The other thing that I really like about this, and again, you just saw the first option there where we're going to hit the ball to 3 there. We're going to go curl the 1, right? Zipper cut, hit the 2 passes to the 3 for a 3-point shot, right? In that second frame, if I'm not mistaken, in one of the frames there, one of the things that this play is designed to do, it's got built-in pressure release. So let's say that 2 comes off the zipper cut and they switched and they just cleaned us up. Like there's nowhere to throw the ball. We're denied. The first time we ran this, we ran it against Triway, and they actually did this. They switched the screen. We had a guy open, but our inbounder kind of panicked because it was the first time we'd ever run it in a game. And so he went to his second option, which was the 5, okay, which we call it's 1001, 1002. We yell deny, right? It's an automatic into the next phase of it. So like if X2 denies 2 and we can't get the ball to either 1 on the curl or to 2 coming off the zipper screen, right? We yell deny, 5 screens for 3. Okay, 3 flares over top to the weak side while the ball's still out of bounds, and 5 steps to the ball, and we inbound to the 5, and then 4 steps in, right? And 5 passes back to 4 for the 3-point shot, and that's what actually we hit against Triway at the end of regulation to send the game into the first overtime. It was a 2-overtime game. So again, X2 denied 2, X1 denied 1. We went into our automatic, right? Shouted denied. 5 screen for 3, 3 flare to the weak side corner, 5 step to the ball, 4 inbounded to 5, 5 pitched back to 4 stepping in, and 4 fired up a 3 and hit it at the buzzer to tie the game.
Okay, so looking at some of the other options here, if your 1 is drawing attention with their cut, you've got kind of a give and go back to your inbounder. That's going to, that's going to make sense if 1 is drawing a lot of attention, and you said that's somebody that you want to be able to draw attention from the defense. You've got a slip option here if you're heading back to the strong side where 5 might be on a dive to the rim.
Yep.
And this is what you were just finished talking about. I was a little slow with the diagrams here, but this is that denied concept where if X2 beats 2 to the top of the key, all right, we're going to look to play through 5 and directly just screen and curl for 3 to catch it directly from the inbound pass. Do I have that right, Coach?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. And again, right, if you're only down 2 or you're only down 1, the whole floor opens up a little bit, right? And so 5 becomes a more dangerous player inside the 3-point line if you're only down 1 or 2 because they have to guard the entire floor. And if they sell out to deny everybody, there's a chance you're going to get maybe 5 even slip into the basket after he screens if they're denying him hard. The thing that I love about this play is there's 3 different entry possibilities, really 4, because the other thing that you could do is, on that denial concept, when 3 flares over off the top of the 5, if he's open on that flare, we could skip it to him. And that's really the thing that I like best about this short clock, no timeouts left. We practice every scenario. So I know we're going to get the ball in bounds, and I know the ball is going to get in the air. Right. I mean, like as the coach, I want the 3 to be the guy that catches and shoots it if it's a 3-point shot because he's our best 3-point shooter. He's a guy I trust. He's a big game player. He's clutch. I know it. He's going to make that shot. But like, let's just be honest. We can't be picky. The most important thing after designing the play to include my 2 better players being in a sequence where one of them is probably going to get the shot is just to make sure that we're going to get a shot. Because there's nothing worse than the buzzer going off and one of your guys standing there holding the ball because you weren't ready. And it happens if you don't take every one of those possibilities in consideration. And again, this play was designed with that very thing in mind, right? Especially at the end of the season in a game that's going to decide are you going to play again or not? I mean, we practiced this starting the first week of practice, and that's one of the things that I was going to say. If you've got that team that can make that run, I would start working on these the very first week. I mean, I would take a 5-minute practice segment and I'd run it 5-on-0 against the clock. and then I'd run it against the JV challenge team against the clock until I get really good at it, right?
Yeah.
And let it show up in practice once or twice a week all year long, and have it ready.
So that's a pretty good look there at Titan sideline out of bounds at an end of game situation. Again, trying to broaden the conversation here a little bit. I wanted to get your thoughts on something like this, Coach. These are plays that you could use in a free throw rebounding situation that might come in handy. And the first one on the far left is this kind of cross pick concept where you're trying to cross the lane, you're trying to rub your 4 off on X5 to give 5 a free run to the basket. There's a lot of college teams that run a concept like this, but instead of just trying to shove a guy underneath the rim or jump over top of a guy, you're using some strategy here to kind of set a pick across the lane. Have you seen much of that, Coach?
Absolutely. I've used that one, and I've also used the one where the guy on the side will screen the man on the third block on the same side and kind of slip behind to try to sneak around the back. I mean, that was a lot more common before they changed the free throw shooting rule to it has to hit the rim first.
Yeah.
If you remember that kind of changed the game. You used to be able to go on the release. Is the rule still has to hit the rim in high school basketball? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it depends which state that you're in, but then that change happened while I was coaching. The second diagram here in the middle, you're creating some coordinated movement where everything's kind of flowing to the left, and then you'd be running a player in from the backcourt to contribute to rebounding. And the final one is a need a miss situation where you're coordinating everybody to crash to the left side, and you're trying to miss to the left, and you're trying to put all your bodies over there and run a shooter over to that sideline where you'd have an easy kick out situation if you are able to get the ball. So those are kind of plays that you can put on for free throw rebounding. A lot of coaches overlook this concept, but there is a lot of coaches out there that are getting mileage using this kind of organizational strategy, with their free throw rebounding situation. Next thing that I want to hit here is some of my late game favorite sideline out of bounds plays. Syracuse, when I got my first head coaching job at St. Thomas Aquinas, the first time I ever took them out to play against another team, we went to a summer shootout, and we were in a situation where we needed a 2-pointer. I think it was a game winning. We were down 1, but we ran this Syracuse play and it worked to perfection. So all we're doing here is we're going to inbound the ball. We're going to sprint down to the corner, and 5's going to call screen for 3 as kind of a diversion. And then we're going right into that blind pig action where we're flashing into the middle. We're hitting, and then 2 is looking for a head turn from X2, because usually when that ball gets passed to the middle, those defenders turn their head, and as soon as that head turns, we're going for a backdoor layup there. So I called this Syracuse, and it won me my first ever summer league game, coaching my first ever varsity team. Second would be this Toronto call, which is what we would need if we're needing a 3 on a sideline out of bounds. And the interesting thing here is, 3's coming to the corner to clear some space there, but we enter the ball, and 4 sprints like he's going to set a ball screen for 1. But instead of setting a ball screen, it's actually a flare screen for the inbounder. So we're looking to pretend like we're setting that ball screen. We're going to flare it over the top, and we're looking to get our shooter as the inbounder a 3-pointer at the top of the key or on the backside. So those are 2 of my favorite sideline out of bounds plays. And when we're in a pinch there, 1 for needing a 2 and 1 for needing a 3. Any thoughts on looking at these diagrams, Coach?
No, I love them. Yeah, I like them. We got some things that we do from the side in real time, like not in the tight end of game situations that have that element in them. That the Chicago action that I've shared already in one of my items, and it's going to be a part of my 2-guard item that I'm going to release here very soon. Has that element to it, and I like to be able to run, things from the top. Some things that we run from the top, I also like to be able to turn them into side out of bounds plays, and that one of the ones that we that we like to run does have that element in it. And I think anytime, obviously you can run that blind pig action and it's a layup, right? I mean, every time you can get a layup on an out of bounds situation, that's 2 points that you stole. And so it's great action. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good piece of advice that I didn't learn until some ways into my coaching career, is that your sideline out of bounds plays don't have to be unique. A lot of times you can just run your set plays based on get your players into position to run them by some movement ahead while you inbound the ball on the sideline. I see a lot of coaches where their sideline out of bounds are all like completely unique. And that's not very good playbook efficiency, because you only get so many times to inbound sideline out of bounds during a given game. So if everything's completely unique and it's not a play that you would use in the half court, I think you're losing some efficiency there. So last thing to show you, Coach, until we get back into your guide, is a baseline out of bounds play that I've used quite a bit. I call it BW. It's super stupid, super simple, but it's worked like crazy through my coaching career. And all we do is we're lining up in this kind of alignment here where we've got 2 on the blocks and then 1 at the free throw line circle. And we're just going to screen over and curl and look for a lob at the front of the rim. So I've got a ton of mileage out of this in my coaching career. Obviously, the more that you run it, the less effective it is. But we also got to the point where we could add counters to it, where like our first screener, we would slip them out to the backside, or we would run some different action out of the alignment. So coaches didn't know, as soon as we went to this alignment, we were running our lob play. We had some counters and some adjustments to it. But, as you can see from the film, we got just a amount of buckets that you couldn't even imagine was for a play that's so simple and so stupid.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great action. That's one of those ones that I've got scouted, right, with my smaller teams. And then, we talk about it all week, and we weren't going to let you get it. And the first time you're out of bounds under, you'd get it, and I'd call a timeout and ask if anybody was listening all week long, right? Isn't that kind of the way that works?
Yeah. The keys.
It's really hard to defend baseline out of bounds when you're small. I mean, and if the other team's small and you run that play, I mean, there's really not much you can do about it.
Yeah, the keys here are kind of just cracking down and over. And the more the players do it, the more they understand what that screen looks like. I will say I've had players that were a lot better than others at catching and finishing the ball in the air.
Yeah.
Some players just struggle with it, and they struggle with it consistently. So now we're looking at kind of a slip option where we've sold that play, and now we're looking to kind of slip to the backside when they start expecting it too much. And, having some counters really makes the effectiveness of the lob, because every time you go to the alignment, if you're just running the lob, coaches are going to pick up on that pretty quick.
I mean, we've talked about this in a number of different items. A play is only as good as its counter. It will only have a shelf life that really has value to you if you are able to counter it at least 1 or 2 ways. If you can't at the varsity level, it's just not going to last very long. I mean, everything looks good at a team camp in the summertime because there's no scouting, no preparation. Just about everything will look good at the JV level because there's very little scouting and preparation. You get to the varsity level, if your play doesn't have a counter, I don't care how good it is, its shelf life is going to be short.
Okay, with that, let's dive back into your 6-pack of special situations plays here. And this one is going to be called W, and it's a end of game special here. So, Coach, I'm going to flip that back up on the screen for us to talk about it. And this is your play, so I'll let you introduce it how you'd want.
Yeah, in line out of bounds here. We got there, I say 6.8 seconds or more. The best version of this comes between 8.5 seconds and maybe 10. We're tied, we're down 1, we're down 2, we're down 3. We're going to push up into what kind of looks like almost like a diamond allotment there, and we're going to hide our ball handler there at the foul line circle there. 3 is going to be at the point, a couple steps off the 3-point line. 5 is going to be spaced, who's our best screener. And again, I've given quite a bit of detail there about the type of players that need to be. We obviously want our one man to be a playmaker, somebody who can advance the ball quickly, make a decision, make a shot, make a pass, whatever the case may be. 2 is a guy that we want to draw attention. Coming around these screens, we want him to be our shooter, somebody that the other team fears in catch and shoot. It'd be great if he was good in the open court as well, but more than anything else, he has to be a pretty good shooter because we're not trying to throw him the ball initially. And 3 has got to be a second point guard. I always like to say here with most of my teams, I've had more than one point guard that I trusted. That 3-man has also got to be somebody who can advance the ball quickly and make a quick decision. The ultimate goal here is going to be to end up getting the ball to 1 in the middle of the floor, downhill, right? Running at the basket, getting the defense retreating. Where we're going to run into a pin down for our best shooter at the other end of the floor. But if we don't get one, right, and we've got 6.8 seconds, we can still get into the play as long as 3 is got quick wits and is able to make a play. 4 again is a guy that's he's got to be a really good inbound passer. He's got to be a kid that we trust to make the right decision. He's got to be a kid that won't panic. All those things I just said are really, really important, right? So like those are things that sometimes when we're looking at X and O's, we get lost in the shuffle. If that kid's taking the ball out of bounds, is going to seize up and panic there, then it doesn't matter what your play is, the play's not going to work. And anybody who's been in a late game situation where there's been 3 different guys open and for some reason the kid inbounding didn't throw the ball, you know what I'm talking about, right? So these are things that you want to learn about your players going in, right? So with all that being said, the object here is to put 2 and 5 at the other end of the floor in kind of a tight pin down situation where we're either going to get it the 2 coming off for a jump shot behind the 3-point line or the 5 slip into the basket for a layup. This was the one I was. Go ahead.
Back up here, second coach, where we've got 1 and 2 engaged in kind of a screening action, and we're going to enter to the weak side of the court, which has a tendency for the defense to relinquish a little bit of intensity when a player is cutting to the weak side of the court as opposed to coming directly to the ball. So we're entering the ball to the weak side of the court, and we're looking to hit 1 on a sprint right up the gut here. So we're creating space for 1 to catch the ball in the middle of the court. Obviously, this should be a ball handler that you trust their ball handling skills and their decision-making. And then we are simultaneously back screening for 2 to fill this right lane. So that's where we're at with the diagrams, Coach. We're filling down the court. And now it seems like from what you've already told me, we're going to organize into a shot for a shooter here.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. One of the things that's really important, and I detail this quite a bit in the packet, is the timing of those initial screens up there. 2 is going to run around a stationary screen by 1, and 5 is going to stand still, and 2 is going to clear 5 as well. We're trying to get the defense moving with 2, and then like you said, we're going to inbound to 3 on the backside of the play. So it's kind of a misdirection thing. If you're looking at the details there, 3 is jab stepping left to set his man up to get going that direction as well, so that side of the floor opens up. And we teach 3, okay, to make that cut to that spot where he catches the inbounds as soon as 1's butt disappears behind, or 2's butt disappears behind 1's screen. So we inbound to 3 here, okay, and as soon as 3 catches the ball, 1 is going to sprint down the middle of the floor. So we're looking to go quick, 3 to 1 in the middle of the floor, okay. Assuming that we get that, and every time we've ever run this, we've gotten it, okay? There's other options here if we don't get it, but let's assume that we've got it. We've got 1 now in a jailbreak here, right? Okay, we've got we got exactly what we want. We've got our best ball handler, our 1 man in the open court, right, with a chance to make a play here to get us into something at the end, so we're at least getting a shot at the basket. And we've got our 2 most likely players to be able to catch and score in position where they're going to be the ones catching this thing to make that play. So the big thing here for 5 is, right, because again, we want to make sure we get the ball in bounds no matter what. 5 has to screen for 2, okay, and then he's got to turn and make sure that the ball gets inbounded before he takes off. Because if we don't inbound to 3 and we can't hit 1 sprint down the middle of the floor from out of bounds, then 5's got to step back to the ball so we can continue with the play. And there's other ways that we get into this. But as soon as 5 sees the ball's inbounded, he turns and he chases 2 down the floor, right? So 2 and 5 are sprinting down the floor spaced about 15 to 18 feet apart. And 2 is going to get inside the 3-point line. We try to teach him to get about halfway between the lane line and the 3 line. And 5 is just sprinting to seek his man to pin down for him in transition as 1 is advancing that ball, okay? So if you continue to search, 1's got the ball. He's attacking. 5 pins down for 2. Two comes off the pin down. We got a catch and shoot three possibility. Like I said, in our opening here with this particular play, the last time I ran it, it's the last time I ever ran it, we actually got the screener 5 slip into the basket for a dunk at the buzzer to tie the game.
Yeah, so we've got some interchangeability where we're entering to 3 on the weak side. We're looking to hit 1 down the middle. If 1 can't get open or isn't open and we don't make that pass, then it's going to be they're going to exchange roles where 1 is going to fill the left side and 3 would be the ball handler. So we're setting that pin down up on the low side here. We're looking for a really good change of pace and change of direction cut by 2. And then we're reading not only the pin down, but we're reading the slip action. As we found, it can be very valuable too from your story that you told earlier in this video.
I think one of the other things that's important to know here is the 4 is not out of the play, right? Once he's inbounded the ball, we would like him to trail the play hard in case we don't get what we're looking for on the ball side. Okay. And if you continue to look here, we never had to run it in a game to this, but like if you've got 9 seconds left, you got plenty of time if you don't get the ball side action to hit 4 on the trail. And I will tell you, you see this in practice over and over. You see it in games a lot. Teams tend to lose track of the guy who's trailing, right? Especially in a short clock situation. So let's say we run this pin down on the ball on the play action side, and we don't hit the 2 coming off or the 3-point shot. We don't hit the slip. 4 settles in on that trail. We may get a pitch back to 4, maybe even a 1 more in the corner to 1 who ran that other lane. And what you end up with here, Coach, again, is really good spacing. And it all kind of ties into our fire fast break as well. So it puts us out in space, and we read these situations over and over and over again in transition all the time. We just got into it in a very specific way here for this particular out of bounds late game scenario.
Yeah, we got the trail option pulled up on the screen this way, where if we can't hit the pin down and we can't hit the slip, we're looking to reverse through the trail. Another option that you hadn't talked about was if you come off the pin down, you're obviously trying to get that shot, but if you don't have the shot, the pin down feeds directly into a post up. So right. 5 would screen down, 2 would catch it, and if 2 doesn't have the shot, they're looking to feed the post inside there. So playing through the trail or just playing basketball here where we're trying to drive and kick at this situation. And we've got, like you said, good floor spacing so that wherever the defense has helped from, we've got options as far as a dump down, a kick out,
sure,
things of that nature.
And the other thing with this, Coach, again, is it's repetition, right? Different times on the clock. This is a really easy one to rep, even if you're working on your transition offense. Just work on transition offense from a dead ball. Put 9.9 seconds or put 8.5 on the clock or whatever it's going to be, right? And tell them this possession we're gonna try to we're up against the clock late game here, and it's something that the more you practice it, the better feel a player gets for it. And I'm watching an NBA game today. I'm sure you were watching the Cavs game there. At the end of the first half, Detroit's got 3.6 seconds. They got to go the length of the floor. And you feel like 3.6 seconds is like there's no way they're getting a shot off. But that guy knew exactly how much time he had to get that shot off. He took the exact amount of dribbles he knew he had. He never panicked, right? He got the shot off. The basket went in. It's a difference between being up 7 and up 10 at the end. And I'm sure it's because they practice those scenarios and they're in tune with the clock and what they're able to do in the amount of time that they've got.
Yeah, these special situations, it's a really helpless feeling to not know what you're going to do. You want to have a really high comfort level with these plays that you're going to run. I can remember in my coaching career having a situation where I was trying to draw one of these up and I was putting different players on the grease board to kind of show them what they were going to do. And like the last spot that I was trying to, explain to the team, I needed a ball handler, but a post was the only player left. So then you're either trying to switch people positions or you're trying to make a late timeout substitution.
Right.
You don't want to be scrambling to do that. You want to have like an extreme confidence level in being able to execute these, and you don't get the reps in games. There's only so many times you need to draw on these situations in games where the games are that close and you have the ball. So you really just need to have that confidence to be able to draw these up and not be
Yeah.
scrambling to get the right personnel in the game or something like that.
Sure. And again, so we're in that timeout, right? And it's late game. I'm going to draw it up like you said, I'm going to draw it up on the whiteboard, but it's going to sound like this to start. Hey, listen, fellas, we're going to W. I'm going to draw it up here. We've done this 1,000 times in practice. We know how much time's on the clock. We know all of our options. Let's review everything right here, right? And then it's on the board now, and the kids are already familiar with it. And so it becomes an easy thing, right? Because now you're showing them something that they had already learned and they have supreme confidence in. And that's where the magic is really made. It really is. And then if you've already shown it once in a game, now you may counter it on the whiteboard. But now it sounds like this: hey, we're going to show W, but instead of trying to hit that backside entry, right? We're going to clear the backside, and we're going to try to throw over the top to one sprint down the middle of the floor because they're going to deny that pass. And you can talk about it in ways that they understand it, in ways that they've seen it, and not in abstracts. Because kids, high school players, and again, Mike Dunleavy said the same thing about pros. They don't do well with it. So you think a high school player is going to go out there and do well with something that's very abstract to them on a board? Some kids just don't. They just don't learn that way. And so it has to be something that's practiced.
What I've found is nice is when you have really good chemistry with your assistant coaching staff, you guys kind of know what you're going to go to depending on the situation. And
Sure.
I can talk to the team while the assistant coach draws up the play, and they're handing me a board that already has the players in their positions and things like that. But that does take some time and some synergy to be able to get to that level, to be able to coordinate together to get something going like that. So
that's a great point. I find myself at the end of games using players' initials sometimes, and that works great until you got 3 kids' names that all end with the letter A, right? And they're standing there looking at each other, going, "Wait a minute now, coach. Which A was I?" I had one when I coached Alex O'Connell. I had another Alex on that team, and at the end of one of the huddles, they looked at me and were like, "Hey, listen, which Alex was I?" And I was like, "Hey, use your head, man. Alex O'Connell's the guy that's taking the shot, right? He's going to Duke. He's taking a shot, right?" So we figured it out.
Yeah, well, this has been an interesting discussion. I appreciate you lending some of your 6-pack of late game sets. I tried to supplement with some defense and some free throw rebounding and some special situations plays that I've used in my coaching career. But overall, I think this could be a worthwhile conversation for a lot of coaches to consume.
Yeah, I mean, I again, if you've got a team that you think can do something, whatever that something is, and you haven't started working on these yet, or you don't have go-tos in these situations that you have supreme confidence, the clock's ticking, man. It's January, right? March is right around the corner, or late February, whenever that tournament starts. It's not too late yet, but it will be too late. It will be too late soon. So I'd be getting on those here on a regular basis in practice quickly.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure when you have a special group that has high expectations, and the last thing you want to do as a head coach is feel like you let them down in some capacity by not being prepared.
Yep.
Not that it doesn't sting if you don't have some group that's trying to accomplish a major goal, but you certainly don't want to be the reason that you weren't prepared, that your team of destiny that you've been preparing for and probably progressing up through your program, leave those guys hanging. The good news is when you have those teams that you're really working through your program, and maybe you've pushed aside other grades to kind of feature them and get them seasoned up, you've had a lot of time with them to be able to go through scenarios like this when they were younger, and you can draw on that experience to be more effective in the situations that we're talking about.
It's funny you said. I talked to a player the other day from my 2006-07 team, and he actually said to me, "Coach, I'm coaching this youth league, and I feel like I could still run our plays today, like our late game stuff. I used one the other day. It was a different one than we went over. It was a Tusky play that it was side out with a little more time, 7 seconds at least. And I just got a kick out of that because it goes to kind of show how much we worked on those things, right? You draw that up on the whiteboard one time and no kid remembers it, but if it's a part of their DNA, right, from being in a program for a period of time, and they've got that kind of confidence when they step on the floor to run it, you can be certain you're probably going to get a pretty good shot out of it. And those kids did. I mean, those kids did. They won some games with that stuff, you know, and
Yeah.
it's really rewarding.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. We had been talking lately because I'd got my college game film put on video, and I was watching some of that, and I was kind of surprised at my lack of memory on some of the things that we ran. I could remember our general philosophy that we ran a lot of 5-out, and we did a lot of transition
Uh-huh.
and did some ball screens and stuff like that. But some of the set plays and some of the other philosophy, it was like it was brand new to me for the first time. And it's funny because one of the plays that we ran for me specifically is a play that I had shared on, X and shared on social media quite a bit. And I didn't really connect that to being as like one of the set play packages to feature me when I was a college basketball player.
No, I mean, you were a great player. So the reason I don't remember any for me is because there weren't any. So that's a nice thing to be able to forget, I guess. It's funny because I had a high school coach who didn't really believe in out of bounds plays. His philosophy was get it in, right? And my first year in college, we had a new coach who's now in the College Basketball Hall of Fame, Coach Steve Moore at the College of Worcester, who Worcester is one of the winningest Division III programs in the country over the course of the last 35 years because of him. But my first year with him is we had two plays, and it was because we weren't that great, right? I mean, like we just weren't good enough. So it was get the ball in bounds, and I went back and watched him practice. 7 years later, 8 years later, 10 years later. Always good to go back and watch Coach Moore run a practice because he was a master. And they had a package of out of bounds plays, and he didn't come out and say, "Hey, we didn't have those plays because we weren't good enough to get in those situations." But I know that's what he was thinking, right?
Yeah. Hey, Coach, we've reached our time limit. I thank you so much for lending a couple plays out of your 6-pack, and I look forward to connecting up on you in the next video that we do.
Let's do it again soon. That was a good one, Coach. I enjoyed it.
All right, Coach. Hey, take care.
Thank you.